Mm. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Latino Pittsburgh Digital Speaker Series with the Pittsburgh Metropolitan Area Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Today, we're going to be speaking with Dave Pinkosky from the SBA. The SBA works to ignite change and spark action so that small businesses can confidently start, grow, expand, and/or recover. Today, we're going to be talking about WOSBs, which is Women-Owned Small Businesses and Economically Disadvantaged Certification Programs. We're going to be talking to really anyone who's interested in pursuing contracting opportunities in the federal marketplace. So let's bring Dave in. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Melanie. Good morning. How are you doing today? Or afternoon, I guess. It's noon, huh?
Oh, right. Well, it just turned noon, so it's still kind of morning.
That's close enough. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. I'm really happy to be back again. This is, I believe, the third session now that we've partnered on with your group here at the Hispanic Chamber, and very excited to be a part of it. And I'm really looking forward to talking to you about the women-owned certification today. So, especially for the ladies out there, our women-owned small business owners, this is definitely the program for you. So, yeah, we'll just go ahead and jump right in. But
yes. And as we're diving in, I just want to say thank you for anyone who doesn't know, we do this every week, and the SBA does one of our videos every month so we can bring their resources to the community. All of the resources from the SBA are free. I could go on forever, but the truth is that Dave includes everything in his presentation. So we'll just dive right in.
All right. Thank you, Melanie. Yeah, no, as Melanie said in the beginning, she did an excellent setup for us, as she always does. But the SBA, our mission is to help small businesses grow, expand, recover, whatever that means to you. Obviously, we are a federal agency established in 1953. We fall under the executive branch, which falls under the President of the United States. Our national administrator is actually a cabinet level position. And we have 68 district offices across the country. And the district offices, we're really kind of the SBA boots on the ground. We're the first point of contact for a lot of our small business clients. And me personally, I'm from the Western Pennsylvania or Pittsburgh district office. So all the counties you see on the slide there in green, from the Ohio border to Center County, State College area, that's all of our territory. So our district office actually covers the 27 counties of Western PA. If anyone is from outside of our area, though, I do have a link at the end to our SBA website, our national site, where you can actually go type in your zip code and very easily locate your local SBA district office. But we're District Office 3, and Region 3, I should say. And in addition to the counseling and the things we do in-house, which obviously is a lot of program delivery, going out in the community, working with our business owners one-on-one, or doing group training sessions, like these sorts of things, SBA actually funds multiple other organizations with federal tax dollars. Now, they're not direct federal employees, but these are entities that are funded by the SBA through federal grants. So we actually fund our small business development centers, our SCORE chapters, and our women's business centers. So if you ever need any sort of assistance, outside of government contracting or kind of what we do in-house with any of our counseling, these are the individuals and the groups that we will get you in touch with. So for example, if you need help with, say, exploring a new market, you're new in business and you kind of want to get a feel for what else is out there in the commercial sector, our small business development centers do a lot of phenomenal work with those sorts of things. They can help you with business plans, startup questions, how to organize and register your company. Depending on what you're looking to do. Is a sole proprietorship good for you? Maybe you're better off looking at an LLC. They can help you work through a lot of those sorts of things. Our SCORE chapters are phenomenal. SCORE is the Service Corps of Retired Executives. And what they are is they are actually staffed by retired individuals who were former business owners themselves, maybe small business or executives at large corporations, and they serve as mentors. They actually donate their time to be mentors for small business entities and small business owners. So these are individuals, they are not paid. They are more than happy to work with you. You can get linked up with them. Again, I have the links at the end of the presentation, and you can get some one-on-one mentoring and counseling through our SCORE mentors. And that's very valuable because a lot of the individuals that donate their time are people that have been where you are and understand what you're going through. And of course, our women's business centers. Our Chatham University Women's Business Center, they provide excellent services, not only interestingly to our women's businesses, but they will actually work with anybody. So even though they are called the Women's Business Center, they can assist you with all kinds of things, and they're happy to work with any business owner that may have a need for their services as well. So we have a lot of good groups out there that can help you with all the different things you may need in business, no matter where you're at. So obviously my role at the SBA, I'm what's called a business opportunity specialist. And what that basically means is I'm a government contracting expert. So I've been involved in government contracting in some capacity since 2003. Pretty much my entire professional career, I've either been writing, negotiating, awarding contracts, or teaching people how to get into contracting as a business counselor. And different things like that. So, obviously today we're going to focus on the Women-Owned Small Business Program. Now, we actually have multiple socioeconomic designations we recognize at the federal level for federal procurement opportunities. A lot of times people think we're only interested in small business, and obviously we are very interested in small business, but we actually take things a step further. So we are interested in all small businesses, but then we actually have 4 socioeconomic groups that we look at and have formal certifications programs for. So for example, our overall 23% overall small business goal in the federal sector is 23%. And a lot of times people think 23% for small businesses to get contracts isn't a whole lot. And that 23% goal actually stipulates that we have to direct certain federal contracts to small businesses to facilitate their participation in the federal sector. So when we say we have a 23% goal, we mean it. One of the things we do at the SBA is we actually function as kind of the watchdog entity for the other federal agencies to help them meet their socioeconomic goals, make sure that they're doing their due diligence and awarding contracts to small businesses and some of those other groups. So like I said, that 23% doesn't sound like a whole heck of a lot, and that's for all small businesses. But then we break it down to 5% for women-owned, our 8A certification, which we did last month for the Hispanic Chamber, which is our small disadvantage program. Our hub zone businesses and our veterans are both 3%. So we have 5, 5, 3, and 3 for those programs, 23%. And again, that means those percentages, that means that those federal contracting dollars, get actually directed to companies that have those designations. And when people see those numbers, a lot of times they think, why do I really want to bother with this? 23% of anything typically isn't real great. 3% and 5% certainly aren't either. But you have to think about this in the overall scope of the federal budget, which is a multi-trillion-dollar budget. So when I say 23%, that number last year was actually, we hit 26%. It was a little higher. That was actually $132.9 billion that was set aside strictly for small business procurements. So only small businesses were able to access that $132.9 billion. And when you break it down further with those other certification programs, even 5% for the women-owned program last year was actually $26 billion that was set aside just for women-owned small businesses. So what that means is if you weren't a women-owned small business, that pot of women-owned small business money, then you couldn't even access it. So you had to have the certification in order to be able to participate in those small business spends for the women-owned businesses. And all of our programs work the same exact way. So just to give you the numbers real quick, the 5% goal on the 8A program last year, we actually doubled that. Our agencies did a great job with 8A. We were very, very pleased at the SBA. They hit 10%, a little over 10%, which was around $56 billion for the 8A program. Hub zone small businesses, we are a little under goal. That's always been a tough goal to hit. It was around 2.3%, which is about $11 billion. So even though we didn't quite make the 3, we're still talking about $11 billion for the hub zone companies. And our service-disabled veteran goal, that goal was exceeded, ended up hitting a little over 4%, and that was around $22 billion. So we're talking about billions of dollars attached to these certification programs. So they absolutely work. We're going to talk a little bit about how they work and what it is that makes them so beneficial. And the other thing I kind of want to mention too, and this will have an impact later, is I have that last sentence on the slide there where I mentioned about set-asides are reserved for small businesses from the micro purchase threshold, which is $10,000 and under for us, and we have the simplified acquisition threshold. So I'm going to start with the simplified acquisition threshold of $250,000. One of the ways we reach that overall small business spend, that 23% that we're always looking for, is we actually dictate that any contract that comes out on the federal government that our agencies anticipate being valued at $250,000 or less is automatically set aside for small businesses. So what that means is only small businesses can even apply to actually participate in that contract and hopefully win that work. So we have that threshold and $250,000 or less automatic small business set aside as long as we can find 2 potential small businesses to fulfill the need. And a $250,000 contract, even $100,000, is a lot of money for a lot of our small businesses. We have some excellent vendors that do great work, but they are out there just crushing it all the time, winning $50,000, $20,000, $100,000, and things like that. So don't feel like you have to go chasing these big multi-million-dollar deals you hear about sometimes that are reported on the news, about the federal spending and things like that. Most small businesses really don't have the capacity to handle some of those types of things, and there's a lot of money available on these smaller spends. So make sure you focus and understand, what you can handle as a small business owner. And the other thing that's going to be really impactful later, and we'll talk about it a little bit, is I mentioned that micro purchase threshold. So the micro purchase threshold is $10,000. So anything up to $10,000, our federal agencies can simply buy with a credit card, just like any other business or any other, anybody else that has a need that needs to purchase something. They can just buy it up to $10,000 without actually having to go out for bid. And like I said, that's going to come into play a little later, and I'll talk about that here when we get to that point. But I just wanted to mention those thresholds for you. So just a little bit of info again on the Women-Owned Small Business Program. I mentioned the $26 billion last year, so a lot of money set aside just for being a woman-owned small business. And as Melanie mentioned, within the Women-Owned Small Business designation, we have the Economically Disadvantaged Women-Owned Small Business certification. So we're going to discuss those a little bit, the differences. There are some nuances to them and how you get one versus the other. And our last year, our main industries, actually, we had a lot of good awards in the professional, scientific, and technical services, and a lot of construction. So obviously those are areas where you really don't anticipate seeing a lot of women-owned small businesses. Not a lot of women owners are in those fields, which obviously is a big reason for why this program exists. We want to help you break into those areas and those arenas, and so you can have equal participation in some of those heavy industries and things. That's not all the program is for, but it's definitely something that helps. So we were very happy to see some of those awards from people in those industry sectors. That was great. And just our top 5 agencies as far as supporting the Women-Owned Small Business Program, obviously SBA 28.5%. We're always going to make sure and do our best to have our goal as high as possible, even though it's only 5%. It's kind of hard for us to be the watchdog if we can't even meet our own goals. So we place a premium on that at the headquarter level. But the Office of Personnel Management, 21.94%, Nuclear Regulatory Commission actually had a 13.84% spend. So we have some really interesting agencies out there that are consistently looking for and actually working with the small business community, and especially our women-owned small business contractors. And the number of awardees last year, I kind of skipped over that, was almost 17,000 women-owned small business prime contractors that were awarded contracts, through the Women-Owned Small Business Program. And that actually doesn't even include the many, many other thousands of subcontractors. So there's a lot of women-owned small business subcontractors that also participate in work. So that number, honestly, I probably should have put the subcontractor one on there, but I didn't. But you could probably double that to probably an easy 30 to 35,000 women-owned small business contractors last year, if you include the subs.
This is amazing work, Dave. I wanted to add really quick that the administrator of the SBA is a Latina. She's a Hispanic woman. So it is awesome. She is really looking out. And I've had the pleasure of working with the office at the federal level a few times. And I can tell you that these programs come out of just looking out for everyone and making sure that we are leveling the playing field and that no one is at a disadvantage. Yes, absolutely right, Melanie. That's a great point. Our national administrator, she really came in and has hit the ground running with our programs and everything, without a doubt. And
the way you phrase that is perfect. You know, our certification programs, they're very much needed, and the idea behind them is to level the playing field, like you said. So we always think of our certifications as a hand up, not a hand out. You know, you still have to qualify for the programs, and you still have to take them very seriously. They're not, you know, it's not as easy as just showing up and saying, hey, I have this status, give me a certification, give me some contracts. It's not that easy, unfortunately. There's some work that goes into it, obviously. But the point is to help you compete on a level playing field with everybody else. So in regards to the woman-owned certification, we actually had some pretty extensive changes to the woman-owned certification program last year. And these were changes that were very much needed, and we were really happy about at the SBA, especially at the district level. Because again, we're sort of the boots on the ground. We're the ones working with the clients in the communities. So we see a lot of the pain points that our clients deal with. So, you know, it's great whenever we get that feedback and we can actually make improvements to our certifications. So the idea behind the woman-owned certification program, again, is to help you take advantage of some of those prime contracting goals I mentioned, build your capacity and grow, as Melanie and I were just discussing a little bit, and to help you access those set-asides and even some of those sole source contracts that we're going to talk about for the women-owned small businesses and the economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses. So I kind of mentioned the changes last year. The program itself as a woman-owned certification has been around since about 2010. Before October 15th of 2020, however, it was actually a self-certification program. And all you had to do to be certified was compile some documentation and upload it into our online database, and your documentation would be stored there. And whenever a contracting officer at an agency wanted to award a contract through the Women-Owned Small Business Program, at that point, that contracting officer would go and actually pull your data to verify that you were a woman-owned small business. Now, that sounds nice in theory, and it sounds easy, and it especially was easier for the clients on your end as a small business vendor to get into the program, but it had some issues with it. One being that SBA or no other small business specialist was doing a formal review of the documentation. We had some people that tried to fudge some of their information to take advantage of the status when they didn't qualify for it. Obviously, that's a problem. The second thing I mentioned there about the contracting officers are federal buying experts. You know, their job is procurement, negotiation, you know, doing market research, working with vendors, making sure that their agencies get what they need on a daily basis to accomplish their missions and goals. That's their focus. The contracting officers, however, are not small business specialists. They are not experts at looking at things like operating agreements or business plans or tax documents and things like that. So putting the responsibility on them previously to kind of be responsible for those decisions to decide whether or not someone qualified for a woman-owned contract, it was pretty tough. You know, they were actually in a relatively hard position. And what we found was that a lot of agencies, the contracting officers, wouldn't even use the Women-Owned Small Business Program if they could avoid it, because they didn't want to be on the hook for making that decision, and you know, really a decision again that they weren't really qualified to make. So what we did and what SBA headquarters did was we actually made this equal to the other programs in that now the certification is a formal certification program. So what happens now is you still compile a lot of that same documentation, you still upload it into our online repository at the beta.certified.sba.gov site, which we're going to discuss, but now your paperwork that you put in there and your application goes through a formal review by the actual Women-Owned Small Business Review Team at SBA headquarters, and you're issued a letter then that designates you as an officially approved federal SBA certified small woman-owned business. So now we have actual business specialists looking at this and approving these applications. So now the agencies are a lot more, you know, looking into utilizing the program a lot more, because they don't have all that extra documentation and all that extra research they have to do, and it's really streamlined the process for a lot of the contracting officers. So we anticipate that that even though we did hit the goal a little over 5% last year, that 26 billion, we really look for this going forward to hopefully increase that and maybe one day even get it up to the 10% like we have for the 8A program. So, you know, it's a very, very good change, and we are very excited about that. So the other thing you can do, though, is if you want to work with someone else, obviously there are some agencies and other entities out there that do women-owned certification or different DBE statuses and things like that. And SBA, for those companies that want to do that, we actually have 4 approved third-party certifiers. They're the El Paso Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the National Women's Business Owners Corporation, U.S. Women's Chamber of Commerce, and the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, or WBEC. So I'm sure some of you have heard of them and maybe even work with them already, but they are excellent groups that actually will work with you on your third-party certification for the woman-owned program. So in that case, if you belong to one of those groups already or you want to work with them, they will assist you with the process, issue you a woman-owned small business certificate, and then you still have to upload some documentation, but it's a lot more streamlined into our system. But you actually use the certificate that they've issued you because they've done the vetting for us, and you just have to put that into our database. Just be aware, if you do use one of our third-party certifiers, they do charge fees. Now, in some cases, those fees can be pretty hefty, but a lot of times those groups do offer other things in addition to those fees. They almost, have things like different networking events, maybe different training programs they may offer, and things like that. So just be aware that if you do have the funds and do have the means to pay for that, and you'd like to go through a little bit more of a streamlined process, you can work with one of those 4 groups. If you want to do it on your own, you can do it for completely free of charge. And again, we are very happy at the SBA office to help you with your application. We have some great resources, and I'll show you where to find those. Our PTAC centers, our small business development centers, we're all more than happy to help you with this completely free of charge. So don't feel like you have to pay. Some clients find a lot of value in those third-party certifiers. That's great. If you want to go that route, just be aware you do not have to do that.
Hey, Dave, I want to ask you a question. So I know a lot of ladies and even other minority groups are like, I know who I am. Everyone knows I own my business. I'm clearly a woman. I'm clearly Hispanic. I'm clearly Black, whatever it is. Why is this so important for businesses to get?
Well, like I said, we're going to talk about some of those sole source and some of those set-aside contracts and how we actually dictate, those awards to those companies and have those statuses. But the reason it's important, Melanie, we kind of hit on this a little bit already, is because it's really about creating that equal footing for those disadvantaged groups. Obviously, women are a big part of disadvantaged groups, unfortunately. We have the 8A program, which is excellent for our disadvantaged business enterprises, and you can be minority, women, and everything like we talked about last month. And it's really just, like I said, about really building up these women-owned companies and making sure that they have their fair share of opportunities. At the end of the day, that's what all of our programs really are for. It'd be great if we ever reach a point where we don't need them. Don't have these things. I mean, that would be the ideal scenario, but we do. And, so we work with them. And, again, it's just about helping everyone build up that capacity so that everyone can have an equal chance to participate in these procurements. That are worth potentially millions of dollars in contracts and are part of the overall federal spend of billions of dollars every year. So, that's really
I want to add to that, you might know that you're a woman-owned business, but when people see your business name, they don't always know. And not only that, but being on these lists that, companies refer to for this contracting, getting this certification takes you places where you're not already connected and gives you these opportunities when you're not even in the room. And I think that is the one really important thing that people don't understand about these certifications.
Oh, without a doubt. And that's one of the things we'll talk about when we get to the marketing a little bit. You can have these certifications, but what is it that they really do for you? These are a great foot in the door, not only for federal work, but a lot of times in the commercial sector. We have a lot of clients that are just very interested in having, access to some of that stuff and being able to show up on somebody's door and say, hey, I'm a federally certified women-owned small business. And they want it just for their commercial sector work. Now, obviously, these are contracting programs for the federal government, so we're always going to look at everything kind of through that lens. But, they can have a tremendous benefit for you in all aspects of your business, no matter who you're doing business with. A lot of times people love that. They like to support those minority and disadvantaged businesses if they can. And if you don't have that recognition, or you just kind of say, oh, I'm a woman-owned small business, well, okay, that's fine, but nobody really knows that. But if you pull out a letter from the SBA on, SBA.gov SB.gov letterhead and with the official seal from the federal government on it, say, oh, I'm a woman-owned small business. All right, now we're talking. That really can help that. So yeah, absolutely right, Melanie. Great point. And I do want to mention just briefly before we get into some of the certifications and everything, or some of the ins and outs of the certification, WOSB Ready. I'm sure you've noticed the WOSB Ready logo in the bottom corner of my slides there, but just wanted to mention what that is, and that is just kind of our branding. Like we were talking about, this is a great segue, Melanie, a little bit, because with the WOSB Ready, we're really working on helping our community partners, expanding our partnerships with other stakeholders, letting them know about not only the women-owned programs but all of our programs. We want to make sure that everybody's in the know about what this stuff means, what kind of weight it carries. So we partner with obviously our local organizations like the Hispanic Chamber and some of our other different groups we work with, but the National Challenge Her group, if any of you have ever participated or heard about any of their women-owned small business initiatives. They have a lot of great resources and things available. So we partner with any woman-owned type of organization we can, just to try and help women, again, get up to that capacity so that they can compete successfully with everybody else. So, okay. So that's pretty much that for most of that section there. Now we're going to actually talk about, is the certification right for you, and some of those types of things. So we're not going to actually today get into a deep dive of the actual application itself, and I'll explain to you why here when we get to that part. But mostly for all of our certifications, you need to have a couple of things going for you, and a couple of things not only on paper, but you have to be able to demonstrate on a day-to-day basis. So we need the owner, who's going to be the woman owner in this case, or women, you can have multiple owners, have to own and control at least 51% of the business. That means management of the daily operations, having the experience to run the company. We do typically expect you to have the highest officer position. And one of the really unique things, though, about the woman-owned certification is there is no minimum time in business rule. And Melanie, this kind of goes back to what you said a little bit about the marketing and the branding. In government contracting, especially with a lot of our other certification programs, and for most contracts in general, you typically have to have a minimum of 2 years in business of successful sales in the commercial sector before federal agencies will want to work with you. We typically don't want to be anybody's first customer. We're looking for those quality companies that have been around a little bit and understand our rules and regulations and can demonstrate that past performance. One of the unique things about the women-owned program is we don't have that requirement. So you can actually be a startup and apply for women-owned certification. And sometimes people are like, well, if I can't get a contract without the 2 years, why do I want to go ahead and get the certification? Just because of what we said earlier. You can get the certification now, and even if you're not quite ready for the federal sector yet, use it in your commercial sector. You can actually build it into your company as part of your branding. Advertise it on your website and start using that, and it's going to help you build your capacity faster, maybe meet some people, break into some new markets quicker than having to wait the 2 or 3 years before you can actually apply like you have to with some of our other certifications. So that's something I really wanted to highlight about the women-owned certification. That's very important. So if you meet those things, you have the 51% ownership and control, highest officer position, managerial experience and everything. So we do ask for resumes and things like that. And you'll see that when we get to the document checklist. No matter how long you've been in business, if you just been in business for a month, let's go ahead and take a look at the women-owned certification and get you in there. Now, I do want to mention... Yes.
Sorry, how long does that last? Because if you get it right out of the gate, then when you are ready in 2 years, you're still going to have that certification, right?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Now, the certification is once you have it, you're guaranteed to be in the program. All you have to do is every now and again, every year or two, depending on when you get in, there's going to be some compliance things where you really pretty much just have to go in and make sure there's been no major material changes to the business. It's like a streamlined renewal process. So once you're in there, yeah, you can just go in and keep recertifying yourself, and you're not going to have any problems at all. Now, obviously, if you do sell the company or things like that, it's going to look at a new application, and we'll have to do some things if that were to happen and take a look at that, when that time comes. But for the most part, you can keep the woman-owned certification into perpetuity. So for as long as you're the owner, you control that company, you have the business, you can maintain the woman-owned certification for as long as you meet the eligibility requirements. And that's substantially different than, say, like the 8A program. The 8A program, like we talked about last month, is is only one 9-year term. So you only get 9 years in the program in 8A, and then you're done. The woman-owned program, though, it has no end date. So you can keep that for as long as you need it. So it's not going to hurt you to go ahead and jump into this ahead of time.
Yeah, the sooner the better. Like you said, as a tool for marketing and considering you'll have it forever, there's no time that's too early.
Oh, no, not at all. And the last thing I do want to mention, though, on the women-owned program, and this is another thing that's a little different, is you want to make sure you have the proper NAICS codes identified. Not every industry is eligible for women-owned certification. Now, I can tell you that the overwhelming majority are. I've actually not come across a women business owner that has not found a NAICS code that she's eligible for to qualify for the program. But certain industries that have already been deemed to be dominated by women-owned businesses, certain industries like some in like the education or healthcare sectors tend to be a little more women-focused. Those types of things may not qualify. So you do have to identify your NAICS codes. And for those of you that aren't familiar with NAICS codes, NAICS is North American Industry Classification System codes, and it's a really long name. Just call them a NAICS code. All it is just an industry-specific code. It's 6 digits, and it just identifies what your business is. So what do you do on a daily basis? There's a NAICS code. Everything has a NAICS code attached to it. There's one for virtually every industry. No matter what you do, if you need help identifying that, definitely reach out to me. Talk to your procurement technical assistance center partner, one of our other groups I mentioned at the beginning there. We're more than happy to do some of that research for you, and they're very, very easy to find on the census.gov site. But just keep that in mind. So not every NAICS code is eligible, and I do have the list in the slides, which we're more than happy to send to you. I think Melanie normally sends everything out. So you'll have access to all the content and the data and the links and everything when we're done today.
Yeah, we do have some links in the comments, and this is a good time to note if you have any questions related to this content or anything else with the SBA, please feel free to put it in the comments. We are going to go over questions at the end.
Okay, great. Yeah. All right. So we have the women-owned certification too. And I mentioned I wanted to tell you the difference between the women-owned certification and the economically disadvantaged women-owned certification. So again, it's going to depend on your NAICS codes, and I'll actually show the NAICS code table and a little snippet of it on the next slide. So you can take a look at that, and we'll discuss that a little more. But if you're a woman-owned small business and you're just applying for the women-owned small business status, there's no minimum requirements as far as net worth thresholds, average income, or anything like that. So, you can apply for the women-owned certification as long as you're a small business. We're not going to look at any of your personal data. However, for the economically disadvantaged portion of that, to be an EDWOSB, we're going to again look at your NAICS codes, because certain NAICS codes are WOSB and certain ones are EDWOSB. But then we're also going to take a look at some of your personal finances, including those of your spouse. So if you want to qualify for the economically disadvantaged requirements, you have to have a net worth of $750,000 or less, 3-year average income of $350,000 or less, and the fair market value of all of your assets has to be $6 million or less. Now, the interesting thing about these thresholds, and some of you that maybe attended the 8A meeting last month, they are the exact same thresholds as the 8A program. So if you qualify for the economically disadvantaged women-owned certification, then you can pretty much guarantee you're going to have an excellent shot at potentially qualifying as an 8A participant as well, which would open up even more doors for you, because then you'll be able to take advantage of 2 different certifications on the federal level. So definitely keep that in mind. So that's the key difference between the WOSB and the economically disadvantaged WOSB. Now, regarding is one better than the other or anything? No. Like I said, they still carry the same weight as far as the set-aside benefits, the sole source benefits. It's just, again, dependent on different industries. Some industries are severely underrepresented by women, and some have women representation, but it could be better. That's kind of the way I like to think about that. It's the easiest way to explain it. So that's what we're looking for, and that's what we mean. Now, to find the qualifying list of all the NAICS codes for the program, just go right to that link there on SBA.gov, or even if you just type WOSB, SBA, WOSB NAICS list or whatnot, it'll pull that right up for you if you plug that into Google. But that's just a little piece of what it looks like. So as you can see, different industries are either WOSB or WOSB. And if you're in the EDWOSB and you meet that economic criteria, then you could potentially be economically disadvantaged. So all economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses fall under the WOSB umbrella, but not everybody will automatically, not everyone that's in the WSB program will be economically disadvantaged, okay? So hopefully that's clear on that. That has caused a lot of confusion whenever this first came out. So we've gotten pretty good at kind of, trying to explain it and break it down. So if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer those and we can take a look at that. So, all right. Now, some things you want to do, and some of you may have seen these slides before. I use them quite a bit. Some things you want to do before you go applying for the certification or actually trying to do any of the paperwork or anything like that. Always take a good, honest look in an inventory of your company. Make sure that you have some performance history. Again, for the woman-owned program, it's not quite as important, but it's still something I always like to recommend, especially once you get to the point of actually pursuing some of those federal contracts. Understand it's going to take some marketing. It's going to take you some time to build your customer base when you want to do federal work. No one's going to just hand you work just because you have a particular status. It does take a lot of effort and time, and again, improving your capacity and that you're, the right person for the job. We're very mission focused and project oriented and mission oriented on the federal sector. So we're always looking for those good quality companies. And this is just some good business stuff that will help you tremendously to function in the federal sector once you get to that point. So I always like to have my clients, take a look at things. Look at your financial resources. Do you have a quality assurance plan if you're a manufacturer? Don't get hung up on things like size, though. We have a lot of small businesses that are really just a one-person sole proprietorship that do very, very well in the government sector. They're in the 8A program, or they're in the Women-Owned Small Business program, or maybe they're just a small business and they have, they focus on micro purchases. They get $5,000 micro purchases a year as a sole proprietor. You just made 50K. I mean, who wouldn't take an extra 50 grand in their pocket? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of different ways. Oh, sorry.
And Dave, for small businesses, especially minority and women-owned businesses, 50K is huge. I mean, some of our businesses, we recently worked to get one of our small businesses a grant with the Pirates, and I can tell you it was less, and it was the most money that business had ever gotten in one contract, let alone even in a few months. So these are life-changing things, and you know how they say, like, once you get it once, the ball keeps rolling and they keep coming in. So if you get one $50,000 contract, that's just the beginning, especially if you really prove yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I was saying, in the case of the micro purchase thresholds, if you get just like $5,000 contracts over the course, I mean, if you start getting a contract a month just for $5 grand, and it starts leading to those bigger things, and then that's work that you can claim when you're showing your capacity for some of those larger awards. So don't worry about, if you're only one or two person shop out there, whatever it is that you do, don't be too focused on that. So sometimes people think, oh, if I get a contract, I'm going to have to ramp up my operations. I only have 3 staff members, I have to have 100 people, I'm never going to do this. You don't have to do that. So don't put that type of pressure on yourself. There's a lot of ways to make money, and it doesn't have to be this big crazy thing that you hear about sometimes. So keep that in mind. And of course, with office management, you want to make sure you keep good records. That's always good business practice. It's going to help you tremendously with our certifications and things like that. And you want to make sure you have good technology. You need to have access to agency websites. You yourself as a small business, hopefully you have a good website. If you don't, again, some of our resource partners that I mentioned can help you with some of those things, like even improving things like your hit rate on Google. If somebody Googles you, do you come up on that first page, or are you 5, 6, 7 pages down into the Google results, where a lot of people don't go these days? So they can actually help you increase your wording on your web page that will then increase your results on Google searches and things like that when people are looking for small businesses or women-owned small businesses to work with. So obviously you want to make sure that you do some of those types of things. And again, ID your core competencies. One of the things with small businesses is sometimes they want to be everybody's everything. They want to be able to show up and say, I can do it all, whatever you need. And that sounds great. But again, if you're a small person or a small company with just 2 or 3 people, or you're just by yourself, you really probably can't function very well in 20 different industry sectors, especially if they don't really have anything to do with each other, right? So you want to stay focused and, be the expert in what you do well. And as you grow and expand, sure, you can start branching out, pulling people in, coming up with different things, and maybe one day become a large business. That's every large business started as small. Lockheed Martin didn't wake up one day and have Lockheed Martin like it is now. It was a small business at one point. So keep that in mind. So
I
now
love that. I love that you brought that up because I'm so big on that. People always think like that they have to fall in line and do what's created and use products that are already there. But guess what? Every one of those largest companies was created by one person. It was one person's idea that they grew and grew and grew. And there is no reason that your idea or your company can't be the next one, So these programs are here to help from the beginning to get you to that point.
Absolutely, Melody. Yeah, great point. So again, those are just some common things that I always like to mention in a lot of my certification presentations, just because it will help you tremendously when it comes to organizing your files and records and, having your stuff in line for the actual certifications and things. So now we're actually going to talk about the certification process. Now, I have to say, for the WOSB certification process, it really is not that difficult. And I truly mean that. I've been involved in government contracting for 17, 18 years now. I've dealt with things before we had all these fancy online systems, when it was still paper. I know how painful it can be. I've been through many transitions with a lot of these different systems and things like that. So when we have really crappy ones, I know it, and I'm very vocal about it to headquarters when they don't function as they should. So I understand completely, but I have to say the woman-owned certification process is not that bad. It really isn't. Most people are able to complete this fairly quickly in about an hour or so. It is a really streamlined system. Seems to be, the portal is good. It's maintained. Seems to work really well as long as you follow some different things and do things the right way when you're in there. Don't be overwhelmed by this is my point. Again, if you want to work with one of the third-party certifiers and pay for it, you absolutely are welcome to do that. If you want to do it on your own for free, again, with our assistance, our PTACs, our other groups, don't feel like this is going to be some big crushing certification that's going to suck hours out of your life, okay? It is not too terrible, and we are more than happy to help you work through it. So there's really only a few key things you need to do. You need to have a DUNS number, which is a data universal numbering system. DUNS is run by Dun & Bradstreet, and that is just a unique code, again, for your business, used all over the world for things like loans. Odds are you probably have one already. If you don't have one, it's totally free to get. You have to register in SAM. SAM is the Federal System for Award Management, sam.gov. I know I've mentioned that before in some of our other certification classes and things that we've done. But SAM is the federal government's official vendor identification database. So if you want to access any of our programs or any of our certifications, obtain federal money through like a contract or a grant or certain other things, you have to have a SAM registration. SAM is always going to be step one for all of our things on the federal sector. So you need to have SAM. But before you get into SAM, you have to have that DUNS number, because that's the first thing the SAM registration will ask you for is, do you have a DUNS number? And if no, you got to go get that first, because the systems will talk to each other, so that's important.
I want to add here really quick. This is something that you would think the chamber would have had for years, right? You need this for nonprofit grants as well. And we recently went through this. I am going to put the link in the comments. I already put the DUNS. I'm going to put the SAM. This is not difficult. I know it seems like, oh my gosh, there's 3 steps to get there. I mean, if you put a day towards these things, you could probably like go out for lunch, have a late breakfast, take a bubble bath, and still get all of these things done. As long as you have kept decent records, you know about your business, you're the best person to fill this out. It is not difficult. Please do not be intimidated by these things.
Yes.
They're quick, and if you need help, you can feel free to call me. You can call the SBA. You know, we will help you walk through this and answer any questions you have. We want to make sure that you get these certifications if you qualify.
Absolutely, Melanie, and that's the thing that you really just keyed in on there. You know, these certifications are not overwhelming for the most part. Again, as long as you're a good quality business owner, and what I mean is just having good quality records. You know, now if you just kind of toss your stuff in a drawer and you haven't seen your operating agreement since you started the company 20 years ago, and you got to go digging for stuff, yeah, you're going to suck up a lot of time trying to find your stuff.
But even then, it'll probably be only 2 or 3 days. Even if you're that person who's totally disorganized, you can do it.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, as far as the actual working through the certifications themselves, most of these are pretty streamlined. Now, the only thing I will caution on right now is SAM. There's an overwhelming capacity issue with people trying to get into the SAM database right now. Due to the COVID relief programs, SAM registration, you used to be able to get that approved in sometimes 24 hours or less. It used to be really quick. So it would take you maybe an hour to do your SAM certification. And then the GSA would take a look at it and get you approved relatively quickly within like a day. SAM, though, right now is at about a 30-day time limit as far as what they're doing to process applications. That's just due to the volume of the COVID-19 relief programs. So they are doing their best to kind of work that down. But still, the actual certification that you'd have to do to actually get your info in there should only take you about an hour.
I want to add on that too, for a certification like this, you don't want to rush it. But if it's something where you're coming down to a few days for a large grant, if it's an emergency, you can always give them a call and they can work with you and try to expedite it. They were extremely understanding with us. Now, I don't recommend this because we don't want to clog up the system more, absolutely. Sure. But if it is really, truly an emergency, they don't just say, you're going to miss applying for your $1 million grant because we made you wait 30 days. That is not the case. They are here to help.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Our federal service desk, they have been as understanding as they possibly can be. They're doing their best to get things expediently done. But yeah, right now, just due to the volume and due to the pandemic, there's a lot going on there. But after you have your SAM, it's really just a matter of filling out the application on the beta.certified.sba.gov site. I know that's a little bit of a mouthful. And then your status will actually be represented in SAM. So in your SAM.gov profile, at that point, you'll be an officially certified federal woman-owned small business. So the beta.certify.sba.gov portal. This is where we actually house the woman-owned small business certification. So we have a couple of different websites going through some transitions right now. So we do actually still have a certified.sba.gov. But right now, that system is only for 8A certifications, but beta.certified.sba.gov is for the woman-owned certification. So the portals actually look pretty similar. They actually function the same way. The front pages are different, though, different pictures and things, but they're laid out kind of the same. But if you go to certify and try to do your woman-owned certification, it's going to tell you you can't do it and kick you over to beta.certify anyway. So just be aware of that, okay? So we're at beta.certify for the women-owned certification. Once you start the process in the beta.certify portal, one of the first things it's going to do is this system is going to talk to and check the SAM database. So again, you have to have your SAM record in good standing and active and approved before you start this application. So if you haven't done your SAM designation yet, you haven't worked through that, go ahead and start with that, get that in there, and then once that comes through, hopefully within a few weeks for you, then you can go ahead and we can work on the woman-owned small business. And the other thing I want to mention now too is with some of the changes last year when this actually transferred over, in the beta.certify system, everything is completely online now. We had kind of this weird situation with the woman-owned program when it was a self-certification that certain forms had to be downloaded. They could not be electronically signed. They had to be downloaded, signed in ink, and then re-uploaded, and it was just a whole big pain. Now everything is online 100%. So you don't really have anything else you have to do as far as that goes. So we're happy about that. So the first thing, though, when you go to the website, I want you to take a look at the Am I Eligible button. There's two different ways to access it. Just go on there, and it's just going to ask you a few quick questions about your company. And all that's going to do is make sure that you're potentially eligible for the program. In addition to that, when you answer those questions, it's going to tell you if you may qualify as an 8A, maybe a hub zone based on your location, and it'll kind of spit out some of those other things that you might want to take a look at. And I'm always a big fan of, if you're doing one certification, definitely explore the others, because a lot of the information you're gathering is going to be very, very similar to what you're going to need for the other programs. So these could be multiple feathers in your cap. The certification programs, again, you don't want to be overly reliant on them. They're not gimmies, as I mentioned, but the more things you can have, the more statuses you can have, the more pots of money you can potentially take advantage of, the better it's going to be for you, because you're going to have more opportunities to participate in those different programs and those different pots of money that are out there through those federal contracts, okay? So sometimes they'll even hit on a certification or something that you didn't even realize you were eligible for. So definitely do the Am I Eligible? Very quick, and it just gives you a little bit of information. After that, you really want to go, when you're actually starting the women-owned certification, you're going to go to the prepare button. You're going to click that, and that's going to bring up the document checklist. Now, it's not going to look as nice as this. I put the colors on there for the slide, obviously, but we have 2 different document checklists, and the woman-owned small business is in the blue, and the economically disadvantaged is in the red. So you can see for the blue section, for just the women-owned certification, we don't ask for a whole heck of a lot. It's not too terrible as far as what we're asking for. Now, that doesn't mean there may not be some clarifications needed, and the reviewer might have to come back to you and ask for some things. But for the most part, these are things you should have already, have in order, and understand, what you're doing when you do that. You can see the second bullet, activation and SAM, and everything. And again, you need to have that done before you start anything else with the beta.certify.sba.gov portal. Also keep in mind for the economically disadvantaged portion in the red, you need all of the stuff in the blue box and the red. So if you're only looking for the WSB preparation checklist for just WSB, again, depending on your NAICS codes, you just need the information in the blue. If you're going for the economically disadvantaged WSB, you need all of the blue and the stuff in the red. Remember, the red is in the economically disadvantaged. That's where we take a look at some more of your personal finances for those income limits and those asset thresholds and things like that. So the economically disadvantaged is a little bit more of a intensive review, and we do look at some other information. So keep that in mind. Then after that, you have all your documents together. At that point, then I want you to go ahead and click on the Getting Started button, which can be found there, to actually start working on the application. And as you can see, under Getting Started, number 1, what's it say? Get the DUNS number. Number 2, register in SAM. And then finally, number 3, then you can create your account. So once you have those 2 things, you're going to go down to number 3 there, create account. And at that point, you can actually start working through the questionnaire of the application. So when you first go into the application for the WSB portal on the beta.certify site, it's going to ask you some very basic eligibility questions, and you're going to answer those. At that point, the system is going to cross-check with your SAM registration. So you always want to make sure when you enter your business information into DUNS, into SAM, into the beta.certify for the women-owned certification, always make sure you're being consistent with like your name and things like that. So if you're ABC company, but you put ABC company in your DUNS number, in your DUNS profile, but then maybe you put ABC Inc. in your SAM record, and then you try to put ABC company Inc. and you combine them in your beta.certify portal, you're going to have a problem. Okay, so you always want to be consistent and put those in there, how you identify yourself and all your information. You want to make sure that matches, because these systems do talk to each other. So after you answer the basic eligibility questions, again, it's going to talk to SAM, make sure you're small. Once you're found to be small, that's when you will actually be taken to the official WSB or EDWOSB dashboard to start your application process. And I mentioned that I don't go through the screenshots or anything for the application in detail during this presentation. And the reason being is that 4th bullet there, there's really no reason to do that and waste time going through it, because we actually have excellent training videos that do that for you, that you can watch at your own pace, posted right onto the site under the knowledge base. I have the direct link there, and then on the next slide, the knowledge base again is right there, that very last bullet. If you click that, we have very excellent videos where there's 2 of them. They will show you step by step how to upload your documentation, how to work through the questions, and we have a detailed user guide in a PDF that you can download and follow along with. So what a lot of our WSB clients do when they're doing the certification, they'll pull up the video they need, they'll pull up the certification and the actual application, I should say, in the beta.certify site, and they'll just go through and work through the application while watching the video concurrently, and they knock it out in no time with almost no fuss at all. Very, very streamlined. Watch those videos. Each video is only maybe 10 minutes. So again, we're not talking about a lot of time. They give you a lot of great information and will walk you through the app at your own pace. So definitely take advantage of that knowledge base. Okay, so you've done that and you have your certification, you've hopefully been approved. Now what do we do? So, okay, I mentioned some of this already about how we have the WSB and the EDWOSB. And I mentioned that rule of 2. So what we'll do in the case of a set-aside contract is we will actually, federal agencies will issue contracts that say only a woman-owned small business or an economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business can apply for them. So that means if you're not, then you can't even have the opportunity to compete on that work. So if we have 2 small businesses that are women-owned small businesses, maybe there's 100 companies out there. So let's do a quick example here. There's 100 companies that do what you do, and the contracting officer's doing their market research. They find these 100 companies that expressed interest in this contract, and they find out that there's 3 of them, though, that are women-owned small businesses. The contracting officer at that point can actually set that aside so that only those 3 women-owned businesses can even compete. So you still have to compete, but you're only competing against those 2 other women-owned small businesses instead of 97 other people that are out there, or 99 other people on the free and on the open market. So again, it's a way to streamline and increase your odds of getting the contract. And at that point, the federal government and our agencies are guaranteeing that those contracting dollars and that contract and that work is going to a woman-owned company. So again, to do a set aside, we need to have a rule of 2. And the other thing, though, we can do, and take this a step further, and this is the biggie.
Wait. I just want to say really quick, for those of you who don't know, you are in the room without being in the room. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't need to meet these people. You don't need to make sure you apply. You are already on the list just by getting the certification. So all the networking in the world is great, but to already be on the list, hey, you've got a leg up.
Yeah, because what happens is when the contracting officer, and I'm glad you said that, Melanie, take us a step further for everybody. The contracting officer, when they do their market research, they'll look at sam.gov and they're going to see, if anybody in there is a woman-owned or 8A or HubZone. They'll take a look at the SBA's Dynamic Small Business Search website, and they're going to, again, look for those socioeconomic statuses. So if the agency has a need and they're having trouble meeting a goal, and they have an opportunity to fulfill that goal, then they're only going to market it and put that contract out for only those women-owned small businesses. So it's still up to you to find that opportunity. But like Melanie said, if they set it aside, your chances for winning that contract just went up exponentially. Because would you rather compete against 2 people, or like I said earlier, 99 through everybody? So again, think about it like that, and it's tremendous. So the final thing I want to mention is the sole source. And this is where things get really big. So I want you to focus in there on number 3, contract value. $7 million for manufacturing and $4.5 million for all others. What that means is when we issue a sole source contract, is federal agencies, when they have a reasonable expectation to only be able to find 1 qualified woman-owned small business, instead of doing the set aside where they have more than 1 and they could award it, potentially to only those people that can compete on the contract, we can actually have the authority to issue you a direct contract with no competition. If you're a manufacturer, it's up to $7 million. If you're any other industry, it's $4.5 million. Now, I mentioned earlier that micro purchase threshold, and I said how that would come into play is $10,000. So the fact that this program could potentially give you a sole source contract, meaning no competition, it's a direct award to you through this program. This program itself is the vehicle to allow that. We have the authority to do that for $4.5 million or $7 million is absolutely astronomical. And when the federal micro purchase threshold, again, is $10,000, and you could walk out of an agency's office, and there's a little more to it than that, so I probably shouldn't say it quite that way, but you can get a streamlined award, let me say it like that, a streamlined procurement award, okay, for $4.5, $5, $6, $7 million as a small business with no competition. That is absolutely incredible. So that's where the value of these programs it really is, and why it's so important. Now, that doesn't mean, again, that you just show up and say, hey, I got certified. Where's my $7.5 million sole source contract? Okay, it doesn't work that way. But again, keep in mind, this is what these things can do for you. So understand that, that's where a lot of the value is for this. So I know we're coming up on time here. I just got a couple slides, and then we'll be happy to take a few questions. So obviously, once you get your certification, you want to make sure you're finding solicitations, work with our PTAC partners. They have phenomenal electronic bid matching certification or bid matching systems where they can find you bids and things, find you do some of that market research for you I mentioned, as far as finding what agencies are buying what you sell. They can work with you to identify potential targets as far as federal agencies, contact information for the contracting officers, because you're allowed proud to market your services, which is actually my next slide, to federal buyers. Once you have your certifications, a lot of our small business specialists at the different agencies, the contracting officers, they spend a lot of time looking for small businesses. And if you can show up on their door showing that you're a procurement ready small business, a woman-owned small business with the capacity to help them fulfill their needs. Oh, and by the way, you have certifications like the woman-owned program, and they can actually work with you and issue you contracts through streamlined procedures, which saves them a ton of work and effort as far as having to award, negotiate, and go through 50 different proposals. They love that type of stuff. That can be very valuable for them because you're saving them a lot of time and effort. So you're more than welcome, when there's not a specific contract you're after, to go and actually market your services to these different buying experts at the federal level. So it's very, very important that you do that and understand that. And I actually have a full-blown marketing presentation. I think, Melanie, we've been talking about that at some point. I know that's going to be coming up. Marketing is always a fun one. I like doing that presentation because I get to talk about some of the ins and outs and things like that, some of the fun stuff that goes along with that. But understand that once you have these certifications, you have to put them to work for you. You can have all the certifications under the sun, but if you're just relying on people to find you out of those databases, they may, but you're not really giving yourself the best chance for success if you're not proactively marketing your services to these contracting officers and these other federal buying people. Okay, so you really need to understand that. So don't just get your certification and then think all the awards are going to roll in. You still got to go out there, market, build those relationships, and make sure you give yourselves the maximum opportunity you can to find work. So again, and just a couple last minute things here, a few quick bullets. Don't forget, with the women-owned contracting program, it's going to give you the ability to qualify for those set-asides and sole source contracts. It's going to help you build your opportunity and capacity to grow by establishing joint ventures, mentor-protege program. We're actually going to have a webinar with the mentor-protege, or for the mentor-protege program, a week from today. We're doing that at the SBA. I will make sure Melanie gets the notice on that. If anyone would like to join that, we have Kanika Perkins from DC. Kanika is our deputy director for the Mentor Protege program out of Washington, and she's going to be doing our presentation for us next Wednesday at 10 a.m. I believe it's either 10 or 11, but I'll definitely, again, send the notice to Melanie if anyone wants more information on that. We'd love to have you, and that'll be on Microsoft Teams. And of course, it gets you access to our different trainings, management, technical assistance, and all of our different bonding programs and things like that. And my last few slides here really are just some resource slides. Again, if you need help finding your district office, your PTAC center that I mentioned, the groups I mentioned in the beginning, like our SBDCs, all that data is there for you to easily find those. Our upcoming contracting seminars I mentioned, July 21st, as you can see there, I do have at 10 a.m. So I guess it is at 10, SBA Mentor Protege program, and we have some certification things. And we actually, in July, we just had our working with a large prime contractor. I did that presentation yesterday for our e-chat, but our next one is going to be cybersecurity. So that's a pretty big thing now in the federal sector, especially with Department of Defense contracts and things like that. So we have those coming up in August and September. So if you want to keep in touch with us, definitely sign up for our Gov deliveries. That's where we have all of our marketing communications from the SBA in our district office. Follow us on Twitter at SBA_Pittsburgh. And of course, you can always reach out to me directly or my coworker. And for any general SBA inquiries, definitely send us an email to our WPAinfo@sba.gov inbox. Sometimes the general mailbox, I will say, we can get back to you a little quicker, just because with everything still kind of going on right now with the different COVID programs and things, we do get a little overwhelmed occasionally at the personal inboxes, but we do have multiple staff members looking at that general mailbox. So we're normally able to get back to people very quickly, but if you have a pressing need, you really need us, and can't wait a day or so sometimes, then please don't hesitate to reach out to that inbox, and we will get back to you as quickly as possible. So that is the end of the presentation for today, Melanie. I'd be happy to stop my screen share here and take some questions.
Absolutely. So, I always get texts, and also for some reason, the some of the LinkedIn and YouTube comments aren't being pulled over. So we do have a few questions. Sure. Carrie asks, what is the processing time for this certification?
Certification, the processing time right now is a little longer than we would like it to be. Probably looking at about 60 to 90 days. Again, and that's just due to COVID. We have a lot of new businesses that are pursuing certifications and government contracting. And the review team, unfortunately, for the WSB program, it's relatively small. SBA as a whole, we only have about 3,000 employees across the country, which sounds like a lot, but we are actually one of the smaller federal agencies. So unfortunately, we do not have massive 100 people long staffing firms looking at these things. So it does take some time for you to get an answer back. And I'm glad that question was asked, because that brings up another great point. Something else I want to caution you on, and I've been hearing this a lot from a lot of our clients that are seeking certifications, is make sure you send everything we need up front when you send in your initial application. One of the biggest reasons that clients get frustrated with these processes is because, again, it does take time once you send it in. And unfortunately, due to the fact that we don't have massive staffs of reviewers that are able to look at these things every minute of every day, what happens is when you send in your application, the reviewer is going to look at it. If everything looks good, they'll be able to process it and continue on. If they have to send it back to you, though, they're going to send you a letter telling you what's missing. Then you get that letter back. You have to compile whatever missed documents you didn't send in and then resend it. And at that point, you go back to the bottom of the pile. So you started the clock again and have to wait till another review person, and it may not be the same one, gets to your application again. So sometimes what people have been doing lately, and I don't know why they've been doing this, because it's never been marketed from any of our programs, at least not procurement wise. I don't know if it has to do with COVID or not, is I have a lot of clients seeking certifications that are putting applications in that are incomplete, and they know they're incomplete. And they're thinking, oh, well, I'm just getting the clock started, and then when they ask me for the rest of the stuff, I'll have it by that time. Then I'll give them everything else. And unfortunately, we don't have case reviewers, like I said, that are handling these individually that can just sit there waiting for people to send in documents. So again, make sure you send in a complete application the first time. And if they do come back and need something, it should just be a minor clarification type of thing, where they will be able to kind of hold your hand through that and work with you on that. But definitely don't do that to yourself. Don't think you're just getting your spot in line reserved or anything. That does not exist with any of our certifications. So yeah, good question. I should have mentioned that during the presentation.
No, that's great. That's why we have these.
Yep.
So we're a little bit over time, so I just want to do one more question. The other question, which falls in line with this, is how long does it take to complete the application if you have all of your documents?
If you have all of your documents, again, it's relatively quick. If you have your DUNS, your SAM, and you're actually in the beta.certify portal itself, you have everything uploaded or, that can be uploaded. There shouldn't be any reason you can't do that in, I'd say, anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. Wow. It really is not that bad. As long as you go through the process, again, and that's provided you have all your documents scanned and on your hard drive, ready to be uploaded and things, and be aware there are some file size limits, so definitely read that in the user guide. But no, for the most part, it's a really streamlined portal. Like I said, compared to some of the other archaic systems we used to have, it's very, very good, and it's not very difficult to navigate or work through at all. So yeah, I'd say 30 minutes to an hour for most of our clients is about how long it takes.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. I already got a bunch of messages about how helpful this has been. And I just want to emphasize, this is not something that is difficult. I know even in that answer, he said, if you have your DUNS, SAMs, beta, you know what? It is not that hard. If you have all of your documents organized, you can take a day to go through it, or at the most, and you can probably have lunch, a bubble bath, everything else, but excuse me. I also, just want to add that the help is there. They have the checklist. They have instructions. You can contact the SBA. You can contact us. The help is there. And this is something that could leave a tremendous mark on your business, on you, and ultimately on how you're able to give back to your community when your business is thriving. So this is something that across the board can just help everyone. So I really hope that, if you qualify, you do apply.
Yeah, absolutely, Melanie. And just to add on to that, like Melanie said, the great thing about these, yeah, you might have that hour or two up front or, waiting for your SAM registration initially and some of those wait times. But once you're in, you can keep these things going. Like your SAM registration, once your SAM record's active, you only have to update that once a year. And all your information, as long as you haven't had any big material changes, all of your information is already in the system at that point. So a SAM recertification, just to keep your SAM record active, it literally takes most people about 5 or 10 minutes once a year. And that's once you're in. It's not like it takes an hour to redo. Same way with the woman-owned certification. You'll go through, you'll just verify that your documents haven't changed, you haven't had any big updates or anything, that you still meet the program qualifications, and it's a streamlined process. I mean, so really that hour and everything, those couple hours you have, it's really only the beginning. The upkeep is very, very minimal once you're in these programs.
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you so much for always being here, being so helpful, and everything that you do every day for our businesses and for the community. We look forward to having you next month.
Yeah, thank you so much, Melanie. Happy to help anytime. Again, definitely reach out to us. We have a great team in our district office, excellent leadership, excellent staff, and anything we can do to assist you, we're more than happy to help you do that. And if we can help you, again, we have all those great resource partners that I mentioned, and other groups and agencies like Melanie that we work with. So we'll get you help somewhere. So thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll see you later.
Everybody.
And thank you all for coming again this week. As a reminder, we do this every Wednesday from noon to 1, but these videos do exist in perpetuity. They're on our Facebook, YouTube. I'm now able to stream them on LinkedIn. So there are a ton of places, and we want to get you the resources that you need without even having to leave your office or your home. And feel free to reach out if there are any topics that you think we should touch on, or if you would like to become a speaker. So the Latino Pittsburgh Digital Speaker Series is an initiative of the Pittsburgh Metropolitan Area Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Its goals are to share relevant information, inspire growth, and foster opportunity. Speakers and workshops include community leaders and members, as well as other individuals and programs that have a positive impact, not only on the Hispanic community, but Pittsburgh as a region. So if you would like to get more information about the Chamber, you can visit www.pmahcc.org. And again, if you'd like to become a speaker, you can send an email to chamber@pmahcc.org. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.